She called the cops on me for parking on my own driveway. Yeah, that's how insane this neighborhood had become. I had barely put my truck in park when I saw her Karen standing at the edge of my lawn like a security alarm with legs, phone already dialed, fingers shaking with pure self-appointed authority. She screeched, "Officers, get here now. He's trespassing on community property. My driveway. My house, my name on the deed." Before I could even breathe, 3 squad cars came sliding onto my street, like they were raiding a cartel house, lights flashing, doors slamming, hands on holsters. Neighbors peeked through blinds. Kids stopped on bikes. Karen marched forward like she ran the entire county. She pointed at me with a dramatic, furious jab. "Arrest him." But here's the thing. While she was busy puffing up her little HOA ego, she didn't notice the officer reading the name on my ID. She didn't see his eyes widen. She didn't hear the quiet, stunned breath he let out. She had no idea the man she was trying to teach a lesson wasn't just a homeowner. I wasn't even supposed to be home that early. I had landed from deployment 6 hours before, and the moment that officer straightened his stance, the moment he snapped into a full, formal salute, Karen's entire world collapsed because she didn't call the cops on a rule breaker. She called them on a high-ranking U.S. military officer standing on his own land with rights she couldn't bully, bend, or buy. And when the officers turned on her clipboard shaking, mouth frozen, that was the moment I realized this wasn't about a driveway. This was about power, and today, she was about to lose all of it. I hadn't even been home for a full day. 9 months overseas. 9 months of sand, alarms, cold meals, and nights where sleep felt like a luxury. 9 months wishing for one thing, a quiet morning on my own porch. Instead, I got Karen. As the officer lowered his salute, the entire street froze. Even the wind seemed to stop, like the world itself was waiting for what would happen next. Karen took one stiff step toward us. I don't understand. She stammered. "Why are you saluting him? He's the one violating protocol." The officer closed my ID gently, respectfully, something Karen had never done to anyone in her life. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "this man just returned from active service. He is not violating anything. This driveway is legally his property." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, but the HOA rules say the HOA has no jurisdiction over his driveway. The officer cut in, voice firm. "And calling law enforcement over a personal grievance is an abuse of emergency services." That sentence hit harder than any fine she'd ever written. A couple neighbors gasped. One whispered, "She's done." Another said, "She messed with the wrong guy." Her face turned red, not the angry kind this time, the embarrassed kind. Karen tried to recover, lifting her clipboard like a shield. I'm just enforcing neighborhood standards." I stepped forward, speaking for the first time. "Ma'am, I left this house in perfect condition. I've been gone nearly a year. I parked in the same exact spot I've parked in since I bought this place." She pointed her shaky finger at my truck. "That vehicle is too large. It breaks visual harmony, and your driveway is mine," I finished. "Every square inch." She wasn't used to someone pushing back. Her power worked on retirees, on young couples, on people who didn't want trouble. But I was not one of them. The officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, if you continue to harass homeowners, we'll have to file a report." A report. The one thing HOA tyrants fear. Karen's mask cracked, but she wasn't done. She narrowed her eyes at me, whispering like a villain in a cheap movie. "You think this is over? The HOA doesn't back down just because you smile at a few officers." I smiled because she hadn't seen the real twist yet. "Karen," I said quietly, "I didn't smile my way into rank. I earned it, and I'm not afraid of you." Her nostrils flared. "Fine, if the cops won't help me, the rules will." Then she stormed down the street, heels stabbing the pavement, clipboard tucked like a weapon under her arm. The officers stayed behind. "Sir," one said, lowering his voice, "you need to know something. We've had 12 complaints from her about you all while you were deployed. Noise complaints, grass height violations, trash can placement, even suspicious absence." My jaw tightened. She had been targeting me when I wasn't even on the same continent. The officer continued. "She claimed you abandoned the house, tried to start the process to take over your property. We kept shutting it down, but she kept trying. The street suddenly felt colder." Karen wasn't just annoying, she wasn't just power hungry. She had been preparing an attack from the moment I left, and now that I was back, she wasn't done, not even close, because that night, I found a letter taped to my front door, and it was the moment this petty parking that night. After the sun sank behind the hills and the streetlights flickered on, I opened the letter she'd left on my porch. It wasn't polite, it wasn't legal. It was a threat written in red ink, bold type, stapled to a sheet of official-looking HOA letterhead. You have 24 hours to remove your truck, conform to HOA rules, or face legal action and fines of $5,000 per day. Noncompliance will be escalated to county enforcement. I laughed, not out loud, not mockingly, a cold, controlled laugh. She really thought she could scare me with some paper, but that's what made her dangerous, her arrogance, her obsession with control, her blindness to reality. I spent the next few hours walking my property, flashlight in hand, examining every corner. Every tree, every fence post, every inch of gravel. Her threats wouldn't stick. I knew the boundaries, I knew my deed, I knew the law, and I wasn't afraid to enforce it. The next morning, as expected, the HOA appeared, 2 SUV rolling down my gravel driveway like they were storming a fortress. Karen emerged first, clipboard in hand, heels clicking, shouting at the air like her words had weight. "You are in violation," she screamed. "Remove the vehicle or face fines." The neighbors peeked over fences. Some whispered, some hid. The tension was thick, you could slice it with a knife. I calmly stepped out of my house in my casual clothes, sunglasses on, and called their bluff. "Karen, before you step 1 inch onto my property, the sheriff is on his way. You've been warned." Her face went red. Her words stumbled, and I swear I saw for the first time fear flicker in her eyes. The SUV stopped mid-drive. The engine rumbled in uncertainty. Her board members looked at each other, unsure what to do. Within 10 minutes, the flashing blue and red lights of 2 sheriff cars appeared over the hill. The deputies pulled in carefully, surveying the scene. Karen froze. The lead officer stepped out, hands on his belt, his eyes scanning every inch of the property. "Ma'am," he said firmly, voice carrying authority, "you've been warned previously about trespassing. Step back now, or you will be cited." Karen sputtered. This is community property. He cannot." The officer cut her off, turning to me. "Sir, is this your property line here?" I nodded. He inspected the driveway, the fence, the boundaries. And then he looked at Karen, pointed, and said, "Ma'am, you are entirely outside your legal jurisdiction. Leave the property immediately." Her knees buckled slightly. Her clipboard slipped from her hands, and her board members didn't know whether to run or argue. They hadn't faced real authority in years, and now they had it staring them down in full daylight. The HOA president tried one last attempt. "You can't just, this neighborhood," the deputy didn't flinch. "You can't intimidate homeowners. You can't call the sheriff over private property disputes. This is your last warning. Step back or face charges." And just like that, their power began to crumble. The street that had once echoed with Karen's orders and threats fell silent. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to, because I knew what was coming next. The HOA wasn't done. They never give up easily. They were going to try another tactic, underhanded, aggressive, petty. The next day, my driveway had been sabotaged. Someone tried to wedge a traffic cone behind my truck. Spray paint appeared on my mailbox, bright, orange, threatening. And someone, probably Karen herself, called in a phony noise complaint about my air conditioning system. I documented every inch, every mark, every step, every call. I knew I was about to end this, and I knew I had the law, the truth, and the cops on my side. But they thought they were clever. They didn't realize how thorough I had become. By day 3, I had reviewed every document, every HOA bylaw, every county record. And there it was, a small, almost invisible clause buried in the founding charter. Any disputes over driveway placement, vehicle parking, or property access shall defer to the owner's deed and federal regulations, superseding HOA guidelines. I smiled. They had no idea I had found it, and in a single move I had legal authority to stop them cold permanently. The following morning, I placed a certified letter on Karen's desk at the HOA office, citing the exact clause, attaching scanned copies of my deed, and seed the sheriff's department. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Within hours, the HOA president called, her voice shaky, unreadable. I think we need to talk. The power had shifted. The tyrant of the neighborhood was suddenly the pleading, powerless figure. And as I hung up the phone, I knew one thing. The war wasn't just won by force. It was won by patience, by strategy, by knowing the law, and by never letting fear dictate my actions. By the fourth morning, the neighborhood had begun to stir. Word spread quickly. Karen had called yet another meeting at the HOA office. But this time, her voice sounded weak, shaky, desperate. The neighbors who once hid behind curtains now peeked out of windows, watching, whispering, waiting to see what would happen next. I knew she was planning another move, thinking intimidation could still work. She didn't know I'd anticipated every step. At 10 a.m., 3 SUV rolled up my driveway, the usual suspects, Karen in front, clutching her clipboard like a life raft. But something was different. Her usual confidence had vanished. Even her board members looked hesitant. I stepped onto my porch and called out, "Good morning," ready to resolve this peacefully. She glared. "This is our community. You can't." I held up the folder. The one with every deed, every legal document, every county record, including the buried covenant that nullified her fake claims. The moment she saw it, her mouth went dry. Her hands trembled as she tried to snatch it from me. But the deputies already positioned on the driveway held her back. "Ma'am," one officer said, "all of these documents have been verified. You've been repeatedly warned about trespassing and harassment. This is your last chance to leave the property." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, tried to argue, but no words came out. Her power had evaporated. Then came the final blow. A sheriff from the county office called to confirm the covenant, the deed, and every legal claim. The HOA previous fines, threats, and attempts to seize property were officially nullified. Any further attempts would result in criminal charges. Karen looked around, realizing the neighbors had all seen it, all witnessed her empire of control crumble. The whispered comments grew louder, kids pointed, adults shook their heads. Even the quietest neighbors came forward, stepping into the sunlight. Their eyes said it all. She had lost everything, and then it happened. The HOA president's own board members turned on her. They'd been complicit, but the moment the law and the truth stood before them, their loyalty evaporated. One by one, they left, muttering apologies and excuses. Karen tried to retreat, but the deputies escorted her to her car. The board members followed, engines started, tires screeched, and just like that, the tyrant who had terrorized the neighborhood for years was gone. I walked down my driveway, the morning sun warming my shoulders, and breathed in the fresh air. Every corner of my property, every tree, every fence post, every gravel stretch belonged to me, my driveway. My land, my rules. The neighbors began clapping, slowly at first, then louder. Some came forward, shaking my hand, apologizing for ever doubting me. Others just smiled quietly, knowing they had witnessed justice. I didn't smile, didn't need to, because in that moment, everything spoke for itself. Power built on lies crumbles. Authority abused will fall. And the truth backed by courage and preparation is unstoppable. Karen's threats, fines, and lies had all been erased by one simple fact: the law, the deed, and the unwavering resolve of someone who refused to back down. By the time I returned to my porch, the neighborhood had transformed. Peace replaced fear. Laughter replaced whispers. And as the wind rustled through the trees, I realized this wasn't just a victory over a petty HOA tyrant. It was proof. Proof that when you know your rights, when you stay calm under pressure, and when you act with strategy and courage, no bully, no corrupt system, no petty tyrant can take what is rightfully yours. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at my driveway, my land, my home. Finally, the war was over, but one thought lingered, a reminder I would never forget. People who underestimate discipline and courage always pay the price. And Karen, she learned that lesson the hard way. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.